The style of the questions is actually quite similar to the international Edexcel papers.
Would you say that the grade boundaries might go up?
Most it to.
I don't know what you're doing, but can we like get on with this? Because these guys have been waiting. Welcome to the video, guys. We will be reviewing papers 1 and 2. A lot of you guys have been asking if we can do this review and then also give them some advice, some tips. Looking forward to paper 3. I'd like to start off with where we mentioned previously that there would be a lot of modeling questions in this year's exam paper. And I know why you said that, because there's been so many in the last few years and you've started to see a trend. What did you find on that, first of all?
There were modeling questions, but not as detailed and as long as the previous past papers.
How many were there in particular?
In the first paper, there was about 3. Second paper is for about four modeling questions. There was one where there was a part B said it's a that it represents a profile to like a slide, and then you have to do some.
So there were fewer modeling questions,
and the ones that are modeling, it's just less detailed, I would say.
Altogether, 7 modeling questions came up. Would you say that this was enough to say to the students previously that do modeling, do lots of modeling?
Still, I would say, because if you have been revising modeling, then when you saw those types of questions, you probably thought, oh, it's so easy. Because you've tried all the harder ones, and they can't go any harder than this, so it can only get easier.
We're going to come to the difficulty of the paper. Shall we touch upon that first?
Yeah.
What did you feel about these papers? Were they hard, challenging? Because the last 2 years they've been really tough.
Yeah, I mean, especially the early papers on a new spec were quite challenging. And then as we go on in 2021, compared to this one, this is much more nicer compared to the other papers we had. Last year's paper, when it came out, I thought, oh, well, that looks pretty much, decent compared to the ones before. And this is even more easier than last year's.
Excellent. That's a good news or bad news? Because
what's the thing? Because when it's relatively more accessible, we get more questions, and more question means we still have to do them within 2 hours.
So there are 15 questions on both papers.
30 questions
this time around. Now let's take it one paper at a time. 2 hours to answer those 15 questions. Was that good enough time?
Again, for 15 questions, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to think, first impression is get through the paper as quick as you can. And by doing so, you're going to make mistakes here and there.
You're likely to make mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, even I'm sometimes making mistakes.
Yeah, we do all the time. We do all the time. So sometimes I put myself in the shoes of a student and think about what kind of mistakes they could make. And, those...
It's just like those light computational errors you make as you're writing it down. And those ones you can always go back and revisit and then fix them up if you got time, that is. What I realized is that the style of the questions is actually quite similar to the international Edexcel papers. I've been giving my students international papers to top up the revision. I'm glad that I did that, because most of if you open them up, they're quite short. The international questions are, here's a question, and it doesn't take up much of the page. It's just it's like
so not much working out to do.
More mechanical questions. Work this out, show that it's a decreasing function, differentiate, integrate. After the first paper, I made a topic list for my students, and I told them that differential equation came up like about twice. It's still going to come up. What happened?
Oh yes, you did mention. So on the first paper there was a differential equation question.
There was actually 2. There was a light one, and then there was like a one where you have to form the equation and solve it.
And you didn't expect that to come up again, but it ended up coming up.
Yeah, but then again, because I knew that partial fraction will have to come up. But with partial fraction, do they have it on its own, or would they pair it up with another topic? They could have come up with binomial expansion. Could have come up with integration, but it came up with differential equation, which obviously is part of integration.
Right. Okay. Were there any topics that didn't come up altogether then?
I was expecting integration with the limit sum. That didn't come up. Integration with parametric equations hasn't come up, even though you did get parametric with differentiation in it. Look at the tangent.
So I guess it was one or the other. But they did increase the question numbers, but they made them relatively easier. But they couldn't just fill it up with new topics. They just filled up with, like you said, differential equations came up again. So looking forward to paper number 3 now. Would you say that the paper will be more challenging? Would you say that the grade boundaries might go up to perhaps compensate for papers 1 and 2?
Different scenarios. If the level of difficulty is similar to paper 1 and 2 that we just saw, then I would expect the boundaries to be much higher than last year. So last year's A star was about 81, 82%.
So if they want to keep to that level,
so if paper 1 and 2 are similar,
make the
if paper 3 is similar to this, then I would say expect it to be close to 90%.
Or could the paper stats and mechanics be harder?
And if they make the paper harder, then obviously
the grade range can say similar
to last year's one.
And then to earn that grade A, they have to do what last year's people had to do. All right.
So like, the only way to find out is when you open the paper.
Any surprises? Because you said that the differential equations came up twice, and also last year, if you remember, the statistics had some integration in it.
Even this year's year 12 AS exam had a integration in it. It was to model a frequency polygon curve.
So we should really be telling them, don't forget your pure stuff, just because you finished the exam. I'm sure you won't, but expect some pure stuff. Perhaps
you've done enough in revision in pure to last you for a couple of weeks before it goes away. So
what kind of resources can they look for to do their revision?
Yeah, so obviously past papers, and you also have the shadow papers. So obviously they're just copies of, more or less of the original past papers. You got the mock papers. There's 5 sets of mock papers, and which are quite interesting because some of those questions, very similar ones, came up in this year's paper. The mock set 5, the geometric question, the very similar one came up in the mock set 5.
So keep a special eye for
there's a few other topics also, came up. So that's the mock papers. Don't forget the international papers again. But with international is M1 and M2, but selective questions.
So look at your scheme of work. So if there's a topic that you've come across on that, so don't do that if you haven't done it.
Questions that you see similar to the past, do the past papers first. So when you see similar style questions, you know that it's going to be in your spec. So like rigid bodies, moments, projectile motion. That's in the M2 paper.
And what about the maths papers? They were quite good for some of our students.
Yeah, physics and maths tutor. Love the website. They've got maths section there for applied maths. So they're quite.
I think that's a brilliant website
A to Z. So
all right. So hopefully that should be enough. If you guys got any questions, Miss Ali will hopefully answer them in the comment section. So don't feel shy to ask us any questions. Until the next video, guys, all the best for paper 3. I'll see you afterwards when we do a review of that, hopefully, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye.